Hey guys, I know it's been forever since I've uploaded. That's just a result of having a very hectic work life schedule. So in any case, this video I've actually tried to make a number of times now. Initially I just wasn't quite ready. Today I'm hoping that I'm ready, so we'll see how this goes. But my father passed away just under 3 months ago. So grief has been a really prominent force in my life over the past few months, and I really wanted to talk about some of the kind of surprising things that I didn't expect and was not prepared for, and that honestly, in all of the resources that I've sort of gone to that don't, there's still things that I've been so unprepared for, even, having looked at so many grief resources. So I'll give you just a little bit of context. My dad and I were really close. I'm a huge daddy's girl, always have been. Really adored my father a lot. And in the last years of his life, we were geographically really close, which hasn't always been the case, but we were living quite close to each other. So we got to see each other a lot. And he would drop by all the time. So the week leading up to his death, he had been a little under the weather. He had come down with a cold, what he thought was just a heavy cold that just wouldn't kind of go away. And he did have Addison's and was diabetic. So, I mean, there wasn't anything about this cold that seemed, really too out of the ordinary or anything. I wasn't concerned, but then on the Wednesday I had messaged him and then I didn't hear back, and that was a little unusual. So by Friday I was getting pretty worried. Went to go check on him, and he was in bed and kind of out of it. My husband was with me, and we talked about it and thought, he seems okay, he's conscious, he's acknowledging me, it was like maybe we'd just woken him up, or we weren't really sure. We thought, let's just let him have a good night's sleep and come back and check on him tomorrow. So I went back the next day, and he was dead. And I knew it immediately when I walked in and saw him, that he was gone. And yet there was still, this little part of me that was just hoping, if we called an ambulance, they'd be able to revive him. And that, it was just not going to be the case. And, there's a special part of my own grief tied to that I was the last person to see him, that I didn't take him to a hospital, and then that I was the person to find him. That really complicates grief for me, and that's, not necessarily how we all kind of experience death, but it was very, very sudden, so it's really shocking. And I think back to it now all the time. If I had taken him to a hospital, maybe he would still be with us, and in reality he would have died in the hospital. It was, his heart just completely failed, and he ended up being able to slip away peacefully in his bed, which is exactly what he wanted. Actually, he was very specific with us. He put that in writing to my brother and I, that when it was his time, he hoped that he could die in a place that was not a hospital. Those were his exact words. And so he got to have that, and so it's really bittersweet, because I feel this pang of guilt, and then also gratitude that he was able to go in exactly the way that he wanted. Immediately after, and as is the case with death, there are just all kinds of things that need to happen, that you need to do. I've got to call all of these people, we've got to deal with the funeral home, I've got to write a eulogy service, and declare it his apartment, deal with the estate. And that all happened in a really, really compact amount of time. But having all of these things to do was like this welcome distraction, right? There's a sense of purpose, and, we've got to do this, now we've got to do this, now we've got to do this. And so it was actually, once that had really subsided, that's when everything hit me. And that was unexpected. I really thought that that first little bit was going to be the roughest part of all. And it was in fact when those tasks were, mostly completed, that everything was much, much harder and got a lot darker for me. And the weight, the reality, I guess, of it set in. And I think part of that, and this happens naturally with grief too, is that after someone dies, in that first initial period, you also have, people reaching out to you and, offering condolences and all of those things. And that's really nice, to feel cared for and supported in this really hard time. But then that kind of goes away too, right? So it's sort of a combination of things where the support has, trickled away, and then you don't have as many things to do. And it was like, boom, grief, here I am. And along with that, again, completely shocking to me is exhaustion. I just can't believe how exhausting grief is. And you have to keep moving, you have to go back to work, you have to take care of your kids, you have to get groceries, that doesn't stop. And yet even the smallest task can just feel so daunting and exhausting. And, after I drop my girls off every single day, I would like nothing better than to come home and go right to bed every single day. That's what I would do if I had my way. And you can't do that. You've got to keep doing the things. And it's almost infuriating sometimes because, grief steals. It honestly does. It's a thief. It just steals things from you. And time just goes away. Like the world has stopped for you, and you're looking around at everybody and they're just going on with their lives. And, I have days where I feel like screaming at people that they just need to fucking stop. Like my dad is dead and they're not going to stop. Like, the world's not going to stop. And it's just maddening. Sometimes it's confusing. And you've got to keep going on with it. People keep saying that to me, one foot in front of and it's really, really true. One foot in front of the other. And part of that that has surprised me is this idea that, in doing that, it's like, things will get better incrementally, right? Time heals all wounds. So, there's this perception, or there was for me, that, day one's really hard. Day 2 gets a bit better. Day 3 gets a bit better than that. And everything just incrementally gets better until it's great. And that's not what happens at all. You can have a fantastic day where like you're so happy and you're at peace with things and you're grateful, and then the next day is just the worst. And so that's anxiety inducing for me, is, not knowing when you wake up, like, okay, which day is this going to be? Which kind? I'd like to just know that so I can anticipate, and you can't. You just have to kind of go with the flow of whatever it's going to be, and be kind to yourself in the process, that it is a process and that you're allowed to be sad and have the dark days. And that's one thing that a lot of people have said to me, that, be kind to yourself. And didn't necessarily sink in at first, but now that's really profound to me, is how important it is not to make yourself feel guilty for maybe not progressing as quickly as you want to, or for having the dark days when, yesterday you were fine and today you're just not, to not make yourself feel really badly on top of also grieving, but to allow those moments to come, and they will go. And I think that's hard to remember when you're in the darkness, that there is light, because it doesn't seem like it. But there absolutely is. And you can get through those dark moments, and they will come back, and you can't control that, but you can remember that there will be light again. And part of that light for me, I'll share this with you, because, having support from people is really, really critical. But one of my friends said something that was really big to me, that just shifted everything somehow. She said, and this is paraphrasing, I'm going to mess up the wording, but she said, grief is like the cost. It's the price that we pay for big love. And there's just something about that really hit me, that it's very true, you know. Do I want to be going through this? Do I want him to be gone? No, of course not. But this is the cost that comes along with the enormous gift of having had this great big love in my life. And I'm so grateful. I wouldn't give that big love away for anything in the world. And if this is the cost of that, then I'm paying it. I will pay it. Because I'm just so fortunate to have had it in the first place. So I don't know if that's helpful to you if you are experiencing grief, that idea of it being the cost of big love. But I know that one little thing that's been really helpful for me. But yeah, so I mean, exhaustion, anxiety is just crazy to me. The experience of anxiety that I've had since Dad passed away, and I'm a little bit more anxiety prone than like maybe some people are, but it definitely kicked into high gear, like to the point of having panic attacks. And the anxiety has been sort of a mixture of things, like because Dad passed away so suddenly. Now, like any time that people leave, like, you know, my husband will go to work and then the girls go to school, my son goes to school, and I'm just like terrified that they're not going to come back, that this sort of unexpected thing can happen at any moment. That's anxiety inducing. But then that whole thing of not knowing, you know, from one day to the next, you know, which day is this going to be? Is it going to be a good day? Is it going to be a bad day? Because I got shit to do. That's kind of anxiety inducing, is just not knowing if you're going to have one of those good days, because you just wake up hoping it can be one of the good days, and sometimes it's not. So there's a certain amount of anxiety I've found that that sort of goes along with that. And then dreams, man, the dreams. I've always been a really vivid dreamer, and I remember my dreams as well. I know not everyone I've talked to necessarily remembers their dreams or has super vivid dreams, but I just always have. And a little bit after he passed, I had a dream where he came back as if like he had just been on vacation or something. And so he came to our house, and I had to convince my father that he was dead. And I have his ashes here in our house, and I, you know, pointed to this urn that held his ashes and said, "Dad, this is you, you're dead." And he said, "Well, I don't know what to tell you, I'm here." And so there are all kinds of like strange dreams that I've had, and it's troubling in a way, I guess, like it's upsetting in a way, and then sometimes it's kind of nice to know that you know, maybe tonight when I go to sleep, I'll get to see him for a little bit as well. That's not the worst thing in the world, because it does sort of feel like he is here when that can happen. So, you know, I think really at the end of the day, there's all of the sort of day-to-day things and the unanticipated things, and as many resources as I've looked to and read. Again, they're just still surprises that I don't anticipate and that I'm not prepared for. And maybe that's been your experience too. If there's anything at all that you want to share about your own experience, if there's something that you want to share that might be helpful for somebody else, I really, really welcome you to put that in the comments. That's always such an incredible thing to me when you take the time to leave a comment sharing your experience, and as well, or to try to be helpful to someone else who might be experiencing something similar. You don't necessarily always know it, but someone could come along and read your comment, and you know, it could be that thing that really is so helpful and profound to them in that moment when they need it. If nothing else, it certainly helps others to feel less alone, which again is just so critical when you're going through grief. So I'll leave you with this. If this is something that you have or that you are experiencing, I just hope that you know that you're not alone. Please, if you're feeling that way, know that there are other people out there who feel you, who understand you, who want to hear from you, and that you're absolutely not alone, even when you feel like you're in that sort of darkest of moments. There is light. There is light. Thanks very much for watching this. I'm undecided about whether or not to do this as sort of a series, because there's honestly so much that could be talked about. But again, feel free to leave a comment below. Thanks so much for watching this. Be kind to yourself, and I'll talk to you again really soon.